All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Way It Is. I am your host, Luca with Remax Service First Realty here in Kingston. And we are on episode 24, which is, hard to believe, but I'm glad we're keep chugging along. And I'm very pleased today to have as my guest, and again, all of my podcasts being pandemic centric are all timely, I think, but this one certainly just as timely, if not even more so. I'm pleased to have the Executive Director of the Partners in Mission Food Bank with me, Mr. Dan Irwin. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Luca. 24, congratulations. Time flies.
Thank you. So I'm going to give the folks just a bit of a history about you, Dan, because my introduction to the food bank was Sandy Singer's, your predecessor. And,
correct.
Dan is born and raised in Kingston, and you did business marketing at St. Lawrence College, and you had 20 plus years, a career basically in the insurance and claims and sales side of things in that part of the world, and now you've moved on to the food bank. You're married with a daughter and a son, and you, up until COVID, of course, were involved in their lives and their sports activities, coaching and doing all that wonderful stuff as a dad should. Anyway, and so obviously looking forward to get back to that. So. With that, I know when we had our previous conversations and we were emailing back and forth, you had mentioned and touched on that the food bank had been your, I guess, favorite charity or charity of choice. So maybe why don't we start with that and talk about that?
Certainly, yeah. So the food bank's always been kind of my favorite charity. And then in 2011, a position became available on the board of directors, and someone who was involved with the organization at the time knew it was kind of my favorite charity and asked me if I wanted to be involved. So I joined with the board of directors in 2011, and then worked closely with Sandy for all those years. And then when he announced his retirement, someone asked me why didn't I consider the role, and I didn't think I could fill Sandy's shoes, and Sandy kept telling me they were only size 9. But Sandy and I had a long conversation, and I decided to throw my hat in the ring, and here I am. It's a charity I'm very passionate about. In my career is in insurance, and just like your career in real estate, I'm sure you know what drives you is helping people. And that's really, the key factor in it. So when you're helping people with the most basic need, it's really close to the heart, and it's really special.
Yeah. So I went onto the website of the food bank, and even I was surprised at when this thing became a thing. 1984 it dates back to. So tell us, I mean, obviously you weren't, involved at that point in time, but it's got quite a chronology here of history. So
yeah, it's really kind of I guess you say a shock that we've been around that long. In 1984, we were founded by a group of sisters from the Religious Hospitals of St. Joseph, with the idea of helping in a down economy. They truly expected to be around for a couple of years and be done. And June will be 37 years at this, and it just keeps growing. Food insecurity wasn't a term in 1984. It's something that's now, a term that everyone's using and hearing a lot of. The pandemic has really shone a light on food insecurity around the world, and highlighted that, and how food's so important. We need it to not just to survive, but to thrive, and for kids to learn in school, and for people to be able to perform on their job. It's a necessity.
Yeah, and it's so the thought that struck me, 37 years for something that started initially as a stopgap measure to solve a blip, and now the fact that it's still a need, and maybe even more so now today, a very larger need than it ever was before, right, in our community.
Yeah, it's. I'm certain the sisters, when they founded the food bank, would not have guessed we would be at the level we're at. Now we're doing about 60 hampers a day, So, we're talking 300-ish a week and close to 1,200 a month. We're going through 90 to 95,000 pounds of food in a month. So, if you do your math, that's something like 25 plus SUVs that, as far as the food tonnage goes, and it's almost overwhelming. But the thing that keeps us going is, and again, another thing I love about the food bank, it's neighbor helping neighbor. It's the food bank doesn't have a big pot of money that we're using and in perpetuity. We are relying on Kingstonians, Kingston businesses, groups and organizations and churches to provide food and funds so that we can build our food hampers and then provide those to our clients.
So you obviously are using metrics of, tonnage and number of baskets. I'm sure some of the listeners, as I kind of curious, and I'm not sure if you can measure this, but what does that translate into number of families that access your service then, I guess?
Yeah. So last year, in 2020, it was just a little over 3,000 households, with a total of 5,700 plus people, of which under 18 were over 1,600. So we're pretty widespread around our community. Our area is Loyalist Township in City of Kingston. There's a food bank in Napanee, and there's a food bank in Gananoque and South Frontenac. So we're surrounded by little food banks as well. And I don't mean to. Sorry, that sounded like I was belittling them. They're smaller than us, but we're a bigger center. We're Kingston. We're obviously more population, so therefore we have more people. Therefore we have more need, and so we are a little larger. We're actually affiliated with Feed Ontario, which is our Ontario Association, and Food Banks Canada. And for those, we act as a hub. So what does that mean is we get large food donations in from them. Either, we get eggs once a month, we get meat regularly, we get what we call dry goods. So that's your standard pantry items. Well, they come in by transport into our place. We keep a portion of those. And because the other food banks are a little too small to have, larger deliveries, they come in and pick it up from us.
Right.
So that's how we all work together in the food bank world, and we need to. That's the efficiencies of scale and everything.
Yeah. So you mentioned 5,700 individuals out of those 3,000 families, and 1,600 or so. That's just over 15% of that group are people under the age of 18 years old, which is not insignificant and pretty staggering. Actually, that's pretty eye-opening, I would have to say, right? Yeah. So are they coming from, and not, again, I not want to go too far off stream here, but they're all living independently? Are they all from, I don't know. Do you get a sense of what that group is made up of?
Yeah, so we work with a system called Link to Feed, which all Ontario food banks use. Link to Feed helps us track and demonstrate our statistics. We use that to help promote food insecurity and the need within our communities and within Ontario. So when we are talking to governments or other large organizations or whatnot, we can talk not just about what I can talk about Kingston, but Ontario is able to take in the bigger picture and say, this is what Ontario looks like. It's important for people to realize there's not a common person who comes to the food bank, not a common family. We do have a number of people who are regular. Probably 250 to 300 people need our services every month. Mm-hmm. They tend to be kind of, I'll say, stuck. We have some great programs, social services programs in Ontario. We've got Ontario Works, Ontario Disability Support Programs. These are all great programs, but they just haven't kept up to inflation. So people can't make ends meet, and they need to come to us. So we're seeing a lot of those clients are trapped in that, and to make ends meet, they need to come to us each month. Now, the other, 3/4 of our clients are all over the map. Some of them are, been laid off temporarily, whether it's a COVID layoff or a seasonal layoff, or they, maybe there's a marriage separation and a challenge with income and things like that, and new expenses. There'll be heat bills or hydro bills will be pop up that somebody didn't expect. I don't know what the stat is, but I'm sure you see this too. There's many people that are, 1 or 2 paychecks from needing some assistance, and so being able to come see us to pick up a food hamper. And a food hamper for us, we have a single for 1 person, a small for 2 people, and a large for 3+. And we're providing 5 to 7 days of groceries. And our hampers are your pantry items, your pastas and rice and things like that, and pasta sauce. And then also we have fresh fruit and vegetables, as well as eggs, milk. And for the last 2 years, we've had meat for almost every order. We have had a couple of days where we're short, but for the most part, we've got some great support in the community. Mm-hmm. And we've been able to provide that as well. Anyone who wants it.
That's great, actually, and because I'm pretty sure when it started there was no fresh produce available.
No,
you probably wouldn't even have the means to acquire it or store it. I'm going to guess. So
you're exactly right. Yeah, and in the early days, it was all about a non-perishable collection of goods and then out. Right now, we last year we gave out about $2.6 million worth of food. And we purchased about 175,000, primarily fresh items is what that money was spent on.
Well, one of my previous podcasts, I was fortunate to have my daughter. She's a nutritionist, a registered dietitian in Halifax.
I saw that, actually.
Oh, great. Good. I thought it was one of the best ones I've done. She was brilliant, actually. Way better than her dad. She should host her own podcast, I think. But it's just so important for those that have means, but even more so for those that don't, to get those basic food groups, right? That like you said, and touching on just everyday nourishment that's required to function properly, right? And everyone's under a great deal of stress in varying degrees, and I can only imagine when you experiencing food insecurity and housing insecurity and all the rest of it, that's only compounded, tenfold. So.
Yeah, they put way too much they have to put way too much headspace or way too much effort into, where they're going to eat, how they're going to eat, and how squeezing those pennies and things like that. Like that's just I couldn't imagine, that kind of stress and constant. It's so hard on them, hard on your body. And as you've talked and your daughters talked about, nutrition is so important and food is so important for your health. So it's really it's a big health issue.
Yeah, no. So as far as those that want to use your services, is there, can you just show up? Is there any kind of screening that goes on, or qualifications? I wouldn't know. Obviously I've touched wood. I've never been in a situation to have to use it. But yeah, what happens?
That's a great question, Luca. And we aren't the food police. So when you talk about screening and whatnot, we ask you to call, and it's 613-544-4100. We're going to set up an appointment. On the phone, we're going to do some questions, and it's really about who you are, where you are, food allergies. And food allergies is a big issue that we need to make sure. We don't want to give someone food that's going to harm someone within the household. So we want to know who's in the household, any food allergies. We'll ask some statistic questions, so just to help us and help reporting. Anyone has the right to refuse to provide the information. We'll still provide food. We really encourage them to answer our questions so that we can report properly and get a better picture of what's going on within our community. And so call, we set up an appointment, then either that day or the next day, you're probably going to make it down and for your food. And like I said, we're going to hand out some materials that explain what we do, as well as we always provide a list of the food services that's also available in town, the meal providers and things of that nature, so that there's other options and help out that way. And then off you go with your food. And we can have our clients come once a month. And so if they need us next month, call us again. We do encourage our clients, don't wait until the cupboards are empty. Certain times of the year we get really busy, and because we need to build our orders in advance, we can't just have a warehouse full of orders. Unfortunately, we just don't have the space. So we ask for an appointment, and when we get really busy, those appointment dates can get stretched out to multiple days. So we ask that, don't call us when your cupboards are empty. If you think you're going to struggle next week, call us today.
Right. Because I can only presume that, I would have to imagine there's a great deal of shame or stigma attached to someone wanting to make that phone call, and that it's got to be extremely difficult to be in that situation, right? To be confronted with that situation and to feel that you have to avail yourself of that resource, right?
Yeah, I would say you're right. And it's probably links back to having to ask for help. Most people don't want to ask for help for anything, whether it's, lifting something out of your basement, you'll try it on your own rather than call your neighbor to give you a hand and stuff like that. So that's kind of where it comes from, I believe. I'm hoping that the pandemic and, CNN, when you see these massive lines, in Texas and whatnot, when you've got like 2-lane highways full of cars waiting for hours. Fortunately, we haven't had that kind of issue in Canada. So I'm hopeful that people see on TV, you know what, there's many people that need help, and that they'll reach out and ask for that help.
Well, and I'm certainly not here to preach or tell people what to do or how to do it or anything, but the facts remain. You've been in operation now for 37 years. There is a need. There's a continued need, and those that need it should take advantage of it, right? I mean, that's why you're there. So easier said than done. I can only imagine. Of course, all of this can't help work without people helping, staff, vis-a-vis, you must have either paid staff, and then you must have literally an army of volunteers helping.
Yeah. There's 6 of us paid staff, and without our 60 plus volunteers, we just can't do it. We as far as staff are, responsible for the management and, the managing of funds and finances. Our staff book appointments for our clients, and our staff drive the truck to go around town to pick up food and organize our warehouse. Our volunteers sort the food, build the hampers, help give them out. Without an army of volunteers, like probably every organization in town, we just couldn't do it. I couldn't imagine how many paid staff we'd have to to be able to do what our volunteers are doing for us for free. It's a volunteer appreciation week was a week or 2 ago, and that's thank you is never enough for our volunteers. But I know they're in it like we are. They're in it because it's close to the heart, and we do really appreciate them, and we're happy that they can come and be a part of the community and by helping others. And so it's a huge need for volunteers in the community always. We're very lucky in that we often have a waiting list.
Wow, that's good. Yeah.
Which is wonderful. COVID is really unique in that there's more people that have time, but yet we need more space. So we can only bring in so many people at a time. So we've changed to add extra shifts. So we used to build our hampers in the morning and give them out in the afternoon. Now we build hampers basically all day long with different shifts. So
and that was my other question too, is COVID. You obviously, I hate this word, but you had to pivot. So what protocols or what did you have to implement to now continue operating safely, and not only for your volunteers, your staff, but those that come and receive the service?
Yeah, we did so much pivoting in the first couple of weeks. I think we got dizzy. We just kept turning around and around. Um, so what we've done a lot. At the I can't remember all the changes we did at the beginning, but what we've for last year, for the first time ever, we received government funding. Every food bank in Canada receives it. A huge benefit for us. In order to keep our clients safe and our volunteers and staff safe, we closed our building to clients. So that meant we moved pickup into our parking lot. Works great for a couple of months of the year, but the rest of the time it's either too hot or too cold or too wet or too snowy.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we use the government money to put pickup windows. So they're kind of like a drive-through window, but you walk up to. So we've got 2 of those in our pickup zone, and that enables us to move fairly quickly. We changed our front where you check in. Our window opens from the top now to give our staff a bit of a protection there, like it's glass instead of plexiglass. So that's helped that. We never had a budget for masks. We never had a budget for sanitizing because we get donations of sanitizers already. We were buying gloves, so we just upped the number of gloves we had to buy. So all of these extra costs, it's been wonderful that we had that government funding to pick up those kind of heavy pieces. Now, Kingston, I have to say, huge thank you to Kingston because they too stepped up in COVID. Last year was a record year for food donations and a record year for monetary donations.
Wow.
It's wonderful. Again, this community is in such a tremendous supporter to us, and we've had the good fortune of that. We have a fairly strong name in the community, so I think our people know we're here and they come to us for help. And again, I'm always concerned there's people that don't know we're out there. So I'm hopeful things like this help the word get around. And we've always been well supported with donations. Again, food and money. It's wonderful. When people ask me what's the best way to donate, I say the safest way in a pandemic is online. KingstonFoodBank.ca. Donate now is in the upper right-hand corner. Donate whatever you wish. We go out and we buy food by the pallet. So, when we need peanut butter, we buy a pallet of peanut butter. Right. For those that wonder what a pallet is, it's 4 feet wide, 4 feet deep, and 4 feet high usually.
Yeah.
So,
it's a lot of peanut butter.
It's a lot of peanut butter. Yeah. We tend to get a little bit better pricing than what you can get when you walk in to buy 1, 2, or 3 if you're, got a big family. So it's the best way is money, but some people prefer to donate food. And I've met families who've taken their kids through the grocery store and they've shopped for the food bank. And so I appreciate that lesson you need to teach your kids and showing the healthy food that you can donate. And so any donation we appreciate. A change we did in COVID is we have a contactless donation bin at our back door. So if someone wanted to come down to 140 Hickson, pull around back Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4, and there's a bin there and it's a sign that says, please leave your donation here. So they can do that. We are in, I've lost track, 12 or 14 grocery stores in town where you'll see Partners Mission Food Bank bins. So you can purchase groceries right at the store and pop them in the bin, and we come by those and pick those up on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's great, and I applaud those families that do that because you're right. It's a valuable lesson, and I think it speaks to, it's actually kind of heartwarming and refreshing to hear that kind of a story because we do live in a world now where it's all click, 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 and screen time and devices and faces in devices and hands on devices. So there's less effort and less, I guess, intention, if you will, than making the physical effort of having to go and pick these items up and then drop them off or leave them in the bin there.
Yeah. Like I said, it's interesting whenever I've been executive director for 2 years now since Sandy retired. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen that story where I've met, mom or dad or mom and dad and the kids, it's a family kind of thing. And they've done it as a learning lesson. And it's wonderful to see. and it's nice to experience. Like it's really, again, it's the great part about this job is seeing all those, the acts of kindness within the city.
Yeah. Now, the food bank, you're not under any auspices of any other larger organization like the United Way or anything like that. You're an entity in and of yourself, correct?
Yeah, exactly. We are a standalone organization, not-for-profit organization, registered charity. And as I mentioned earlier, we are associated with Feed Ontario and Food Banks Canada. What that means is that we, during the pandemic, we had weekly phone calls with the Feed Ontario, and we were able to get information from other areas and from higher levels of government, which was wonderful. And it helped us to try and figure out how all these pivots we did. It was really a great help to have the associations help us that way. They donate food, but there's on occasion, like Food Banks Canada during COVID did their $150 million campaign where they're trying to raise $150 million for food banks. So there's some money that flowed through those fundraising efforts. So that's how they support us, but we are independent and on our own kind of thing. I mentioned earlier about the hub that we act as for Food Banks Canada and Feed Ontario. We also act as a hub in a second way, in that we share any extra food we have with people like St. Vinny's, Lunch by George, Martha's Table, and Lionhearts. We when we have items that we can't handle, sometimes we get large donations and fresh stuff, and we need to get through it in a hurry to make sure it stays fresh. We share it with others, and that's something I think that many don't realize. In Kingston, there's a lot of collaboration within the not-for-profit, and particularly the food insecure groups. And my understanding is that's kind of unique to Kingston, which is I think something Kingston needs to be proud of. I mean, you and I have been here our whole lives, and we know we love Kingston, and we can name some reasons why, but there's a lot of the times you can't put your finger on what you love about the city. And I think that's something that the city and the organization, Kingstonians don't realize what's going on behind the scenes and all the work that's happening to make the donor dollars go as far as possible. So that's, I think, a really important thing for everyone to know.
Well, I'm glad you touched on that. I'm one of those in that camp that wouldn't have known that. And the fact that you speak to it obviously begs the question that obviously in other centers, this collaboration doesn't exist, which is kind of not a good thing to think about either, and why that happens. But hey, kudos to Kingston for sure. And
as you said, why it doesn't happen, I don't know. But great for Kingston, and it's, again, just a wonderful, another wonderful reason why to love Kingston.
Well, and we'll segue into this unbelievable, heartwarming story when it's on your website and part of your chronology that you bought the building you're in now on Hickson Avenue, 2007, I want to say. I don't have it here in my...
I think it's a little earlier than that, but you're pretty close. It's early, 2006.
But then you had someone just bequest and pay off your mortgage. Tell us about that story.
Yeah, that's May Bowles was apparently a big fan of ours, which, to be honest, she hadn't made donations to us. That we knew of anyway, before her passing. And when she passed away, she left a chunk of her estate to us, which enabled us to pay off the mortgage. So we've been mortgage free since then. And the stress that takes off. I think you would know this, right? How many people are trying to be mortgage free? And I know it. It's something I was always been striving for at home and waiting for that day, kind of thing. So for us to not have a mortgage and large warehouses are kind of expensive to maintain with your heat and your hydro and the maintenance pieces that happen with every building, but it's wonderful not to have a mortgage to pay. So we've got this wonderful asset that should we ever need to grow, we've got it for our our basis and go from there. So absolutely wonderful what she did, and was a complete shock and surprise.
Yeah, no, that's truly an amazing story. It really is. I mean, like you said, now you've got an asset that's you can do whatever you want with it. You can leverage it. You can dispose it if you had to. You can add on to it, whatever you need to do. I mean, that's fantastic. Just a fantastic story. So I'm going to say that, you know, and I'm sure you're doing a great job, but I'm going to say that you hope that sometimes there's families you just don't want to see their faces come to your door anymore, right? I mean, isn't that the goal, obviously? I mean,
Yeah, the goal is we are no longer here. I'm unemployed and I'm going back to look for an insurance job. Or I'm calling you up and saying, "Hey, Luca, do you need somebody to help you?" That'd be great. That'd be great to do that. I'm hopeful for that. I'm not sure if I'm going to see it in my career. Yeah. There's lots of talk. CERB, one of the great things about CERB last year, the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, is it was a huge savior to food banks. We peaked in March in the low 70s. So that's, we're up 10 hampers a day from what we normally average. Wow. Which honestly, we were getting to the point where we were like, okay, how can we maintain this? How are we going to keep this up? Right. And then CERB hit in April, and it just took the pressure away. And people were able to collect CERB and go out and buy their own groceries. So it kind of showed that a basic income could work, which I know many people are wondering how it would work and financially how it works. I'm not smart enough to explain that to you. I just know that I saw it work in CERB. And so if a basic income were to happen, we would see our demand reduce. Would it be completely gone? Ideally, yes, but I'm not sure, because there's always going to be challenges, and life is expensive. As you know, mortgage payments, rent payments, food, it's expensive to live in Canada.
Well, and sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Dan, but the pandemic has, the curtain's been pulled back, but the wizard is exposed, and there's a lot of ugly things behind the curtain now, and it's really exacerbated, all of these disparities in every level of society, of the economy, of governments, of everything, and that's a series of podcasts, A Living Wage, and I know when you say that, there's some that would want to argue, till they're blue in the face against it and be vehemently opposed. I'm not disagreeing with you. And the fact that you saw the direct correlation between a sustainable wage or sustainable income and the fact that your resources weren't as pressured because of that, that's real life. That happens, right? There was a reason of that. They didn't all of a sudden get there. Now, did they go through drive-thrus and McDonald's? Yeah, maybe, whatever. But even still, it took the pressure off the food bank to supply meals to to supply it to those that maybe are very, very needing of it, right? I mean, obviously, there's varying degrees of need as well. But that's a conversation for another day. But
yeah, it was interesting to see it in action, essentially. So CERB ended up being this, I'd hate to call it an experiment, but it's definitely data that's available to look at and review, and it worked. Yeah. And when you look at, so CERB was giving people $2,000 a month up here, started in April, ran through to October, and then had some adjustments and changes. The U.S. took 6 months to get $600 one-time approved, and then took another change of government and another 6+ months to have another $1,400. So in the time of the pandemic, roughly a year, they got a $2,000 payment in the U.S. And in Canada, they had $2,000 payment for, if they needed it, for April, May, June, July, August, September, and October. Yeah. Just shows you, again, another reason to be proud to be Canadian, and the support we want to give those who need it. It's important.
Yeah. Well, I won't. I just noticed the time. We're getting on. We're having a good conversation. I could do this for a while longer, but what I'll do though is I think maybe in closing, I'll just I want to thank you again. But if you had sort of one last message or one thing that you would want to say to the listeners or say to Kingston, I'll leave it with you to have that.
Thanks. I think two things. One, if you need help, ask for it. Two, we're here and we have been. If you have the means to donate to us, great. And sorry, this is three. A huge thank you to Kingston for the support over 37 years. It's truly humbling and makes me proud to be part of Kingston. And thank you, Luca, for allowing me to come talk to you.
Well, Dan, I'm thrilled. I'm pleased. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity. And I hope we don't have a food bank in 37 years in Kingston, right? I mean, that would be a tremendous accomplishment. And I hope I wish you all success and continued success. And anyone listening, if you need it, it's there. And we'll leave it at that. Thanks so much, Dan.
Thanks, Luca. Take care. Stay safe.
Okay, you too. All right. Bye.